I'm your 2020 GPNA president. My name is Laura Keene. I'd like to start out by recognizing Sergeant Simmons so she can get on her way.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. I guess first off, kudos to you guys for coming out on this rainy evening. So yeah, that shows a level of dedication. So as far as what I have prepared, not so much. Let's see, as far as our vehicle larceny, I know that came up to be a question last time. And what we do have and what they put together probably about 3 weeks ago is a team of 22. And what they're doing is they're not responding to 911, they're specifically going out, being proactive toward these vehicle larcenies or suspicious crimes, suspicious people. So pretty much more proactive work instead of the responsive work that we do in 911. So since they've been out there, just what I've noticed, and it's not gauged by numbers, but just in general, what I've noticed, we are getting less calls from those vehicle larcenies. And I think that just has more to do, not even more to do, but a lot more to do with the fact that they can be out there and be visible, the fact that they can do a lot more traffic stops, the fact that they can approach more individuals and, just consensual encounters. So I think that we'll begin to see them to slowly decrease over time just with the work that they're doing. And I think that it's sending a message out there for the people that's in the area trying to do those types of crimes. As far as that side of it, yes, things will start heating up as the summer heats up, so I'm hoping that this is a great time now to set the tone for that. And so I think that it's good that the major and captain really put this together now so that when crime starts to spike or we see those spikes as we get into the hot season with more people being out, we'll be able to keep those numbers low. We do have Final Four coming. I want to say the dates for those are like April 3rd through the 5th, and that's just the dates that they'll actually be in playing ball inside of Georgia Dome. So just keep in mind with that, there will be a lot of visitors coming into the city, a lot more traffic, a lot more individuals maybe that you may see in a neighborhood that you're not familiar with. So I just say to that, make sure that we just follow our same safety precautions. And as far as items and stuff in the vehicles, let's keep them out so that we don't even have to worry about that part. I think that's really all I got for you guys. Anybody have anything? Nope, okay, great. It's good to see y'all again, and I hope y'all stay safe and have a great night. Thank you.
All right, y'all. First thing is the approval of the January 2020 minutes. They're outside if you didn't get a chance to grab one. I'm going to give everybody till the end of the meeting to review them, and then we can approve them at the very end. Here's my incredible agenda. Item 1, the vote on president's selection of members to fill vacant positions. In the January meeting, I announced my proposal of Audra Cunningham, Catherine Mancy, and Eliza Adams to fill vacant positions according to procedure outlined in 5.06 of the bylaws. I would like to move that we confirm Audra Cunningham as a vice president. Audra, do you want to stand up? You got a second. The motion before the floor has been moved and seconded that we should confirm Audra Cunningham as vice president. Is there any discussion? Awesome. Does anyone object to voting? Unanimous consent. All of those in favor say aye. Aye. All of those opposed? No? Nay? All right, the ayes have it. Yay! Catherine? Yay! Thank you so much for volunteering. We really appreciate it. Catherine Mancy? The motion before, I'd like to move that we confirm Catherine Mancy as our secretary. Second. The motion before the floor has been moved and seconded that we should confirm Catherine Mancy as our secretary. Is there any discussion? Does anybody object to voting?
I have a question.
Sir?
Has anybody vetted her that she knows how to write?
You know, she's a librarian with like a master's degree. She works at Georgia Tech.
They vetted me though.
They vetted her.
Is that a good answer?
Does anybody object to voting? All right, we have unanimous consent. All of those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Nay, 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 okay. The motion is adopted. Woo! Thank you, Catherine. We really appreciate your work. Last but not least, I'd like to move that we confirm Eliza Adams as our fundraising chair.
Second.
Oh, thank you. The motion before the floor has been moved and seconded that we confirm Eliza Adams as our treasurer, as our fundraising chair. Is there any discussion? Does anybody object to voting? We have unanimous consent. All of those say aye. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. All right. Woo! Eliza, thank you so much for everything. We really appreciate you. Item number 2. I'd like to announce the creation of a bylaws and rules committee. The purpose of this committee is to revise the bylaws and propose rules that will make GP&A more efficient. I would also like to announce my selection of our newly elected Vice President, Audra Cunningham, to chair the committee. At our next meeting, we will be discussing and voting on this selection. All right. And then that's it. Keep going. I'd like to recognize, yes, sir.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Does Grant Park or does its bylaws have a parliamentarian?
I don't think so. I can get back to you.
Because the next question would be, is if we did have a parliamentarian, that seems to me the logical person to chair a bylaws review committee.
Okay. Well, we can work on that. What's up?
Just to recognize that our bylaws do put the vice president as the charge, as the chair, the automatic chair of the bylaws.
Of any bylaws review committee. Yes. And we haven't had a bylaws review since 2016, as far as I saw, so we're, what?
2018.
They were never approved though.
No, it was
Okay.
redlined and it wasn't approved.
Okay, so we haven't had any approved reviewed bylaws since 2016, so, yes, sir.
Perhaps at the next meeting, we could have a pile of the 2016 red line bylaws at the sign-in table.
Sure.
Take with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
2018.
I can print them out and give them to you at MPU next week. By the way, MPU is next Wednesday at 7:30.
That's another point. Those red lines are probably just working, they're probably part of the working group right now. Because they were never approved or never made part of to the public of the GP&A, I'd like to just keep those as part of the working committee right now.
All right. Fair. That seems fair. Okay, awesome. I'd like to recognize, what's your name? Chris Newman, our public safety chair
So,
for public safety.
please, good evening, everyone. My name is Chris. I've just got a couple of quick updates. We still do not have a community prosecutor. Keith Lamar resigned last year. He's in private practice now. And I understand that the DA is recruiting for a new community prosecutor. I was able to get in touch with the South Fulton prosecutor for some updates. We have 2 cases in the neighborhood. One was Mr. Jarvis McCrae. He's charged with an armed robbery January of 2019. So he's been in custody. He did not accept the plea deal from the DA. He decided to go to trial. He's on the trial calendar for July of this year, so we'll just keep updated. He's in custody with no bond. He has 2 charges of armed robbery, and he's a multiple repeat offender. So the DA's position, and I think personally, on behalf of the community, we support that he be kept in custody with no bond or a high bond. He's definitely a threat based on his criminal history. The second case was Miss Bertha Mae Williams, who is working on the north side of the house, mentally north side of the neighborhood, including my house, walking around the neighborhood, checking doors and windows. If she found an unlocked door or window, she'd make herself at home in the house, help herself in the kitchen, change clothing. I mean, all kinds. She's seriously mentally ill. So she was arrested on a burglary charge at one of my neighbor's house on Grand Street. And so she was put before the court back in January, and they gave her 4 years to serve and 8 months in custody at a program called Mary Hall Freedom House, which is a program for mentally ill females. It's in North Fulton County. And so she'll be there, and then the balance of her charge will be on probation. So because we don't have a community prosecutor, it's really difficult for us to make contact, find out what the status of the case will be. Once she's released, what will happen with her on probation? Will be a supervised probation, or is she just going to be brought back to downtown and dropped loose again? We don't know. But I'll try to track them down. That's all I have. Any questions or comments? Anything we need to send forward to Zone 6? Sir?
You alluded to care of outpatient services to help this person who has mental problems. Is that truly, do they truly exist?
Mary Hall Freedom House is an intensive program. Well, you can go on the website and look at their program. Any other questions or comments? No. Thank you.
Awesome, moving on. Oh wait, what's that up? Item 4, I'd like to recognize Rick Hudson, our Land Use and Zoning Chair, and Greg.
Okay. This evening, Greg's going to brief y'all a little bit about something that the Atlanta Bicycle Coalition is pushing forward. We have already voted to support this, and it's basically a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit on every road inside the city limits of Atlanta. And what I'll be asking after Greg talks a little bit is that we reaffirm our position on that we still support that. All right, Greg, thank you.
Great, thanks very much. I'm Greg Jafrida. I live in Ormwood Park, and I work as a consultant with the Atlanta Bicycle Coalition. We are part of a citywide coalition of organizations that are advocating for a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit on all city streets. One thing that I think that's important to note is this would not apply immediately to state routes. These are routes that are controlled by Georgia Department of Transportation, so Moreland Avenue, Memorial Drive, it would not apply to those. What this would apply to is just the wide range of city streets that have a lot of variable speed limits right now. That includes Boulevard, that includes Cherokee, Park Avenue, United Avenue. Basically, we have really just a hodgepodge of speed limits that are very unpredictable for drivers, for law enforcement, for pedestrians, for cyclists, and they really create an unsafe situation. The primary reason why a lot of cities are looking at this kind of policy change is frankly just because of the safety benefits for pedestrians when they're struck by a driver. Essentially, the difference between 25 miles an hour and 35 miles an hour and 45 miles an hour is life or death. It's really the difference between a minor to severe injury and death, or catastrophic injury. So this is something that will be coming through the City Council probably in March. I would expect to see some legislation that is presented to City Council to discuss. So this is really not the end of the process. I think there will be a lot more opportunity to learn more about this and hear about the benefits. But what we are doing right now is going out to different neighborhood organizations to let them know about this, really talk about some of the benefits, and collect support where we can find it. So with that, I'll be happy to run down a lot of data. I would encourage you to take a look at atlantabike.org and just check on our advocacy page, and we have a safe speed limits page that has a lot of different sources of research to back this up. So we are also a member of this coalition with a lot of other great organizations, including American Heart Association, AARP, Atlanta Track Club, PEDS, which is the main pedestrian advocacy organization. So I think we really have a broad coalition of support. With that, I'll be happy to take some questions. Yes, Paul.
Greg, thank you for taking this on. I have two issues. Do you have any estimate on cost for signage to be compliant with 25-mile-an-hour speed limit? And number two, the cost for Atlanta Police Department to even begin to enforce 25?
Sure. So those are great questions. The first question, as far as the cost, I do not have an exact estimate of that, but the city has looked at it, and basically they know how many of the streets in the city that they would have to go out and re-sign. Realistically, we're talking maybe a few $100,000. This is a relatively inexpensive policy change that really doesn't cost more than signs, that can really have the benefit of dragging down some of those outlier speeds. So one thing I want to emphasize with this doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's going to be magically driving 25 miles an hour all of a sudden. What this means is that fewer people will be driving over 35 miles an hour. The majority of drivers, when it is signed for 25 miles an hour, even if they are going above that, it is less likely that they're going to be traveling 35 and 40 and 45. And that is really the difference between life and death when it comes down to it. As far as your question about enforcement, frankly, I think, has APD left already? Okay. I don't think they're great at enforcing it right now. I think that is a fair question, whether APD or other law enforcement agencies are going to aggressively enforce this. As an organization, Atlanta Bicycle Coalition does not necessarily advocate more traffic stops as a means of enforcing this, partly because it's not entirely effective in changing behavior, and partly because we're concerned about the equity of the way that traffic stops affect we're concerned about how traffic stops affect the population, and it is not even the way that it is enforced. So this is something that, where I think we see the long-term solution is automated enforcement. We have already passed a law in Georgia to allow speed cameras in school zones. Atlanta Public Schools is working with the city right now on developing a program to get some of those cameras installed in school zones. So I would fully expect to see something on Glenwood near Maynard Jackson. I would love to see something around our other schools like Parkside or Atlanta Neighborhood Charter School. And in the long term, we hope to see that law expanded where we could have more automated enforcement. But the quick answer is no. We do not expect enforcement to solve this necessarily. We see this as an interim step while we continue to build out complete street projects and traffic calming and other measures to really bring down those average speeds.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm assuming that there was an extensive body of data collected to determine whether or not this was feasible. And in that context, my question is, what are the unintended consequences and adverse impacts of imposing a measure like this?
Okay.
What does the data show?
I think a lot of what we're relying on for data is from other cities right now. I mean, it's very hard to call it. The city has done its own study of its street network and what some of the expected costs would be, and I think what some of the potential impacts could be on delays at intersections. But you don't really know until you put it in place. So a lot of the safety and enforcement data is coming from other cities. City of Boston, City of Seattle, there's a couple of cities in Utah. We have a couple of studies from Boston and Seattle that are on our website. In Boston, they saw a 30%, basically it was a 30% reduction in the likelihood of drivers going over 35 miles per hour. So what that means is that those super speeders, the people who are really going above 10 miles per hour over the speed limit and above, it reduced those by almost a third. So we're looking at those examples. You never really know exactly what the impacts are going to be until you put it in place. But when it comes down to it, it's very clear that the safety benefits are worth it. The safety benefits are worth it to improve the safety for pedestrians, cyclists, people with limited mobility, transit riders, and motorists.
I don't doubt that there are overwhelming benefits. What I'm concerned about as I sit here is that on any given day, I would submit to you, and this is unscientific of course, that the vast majority of the people sitting in this room have the propensity to speed or to exceed 25 miles per hour on a surface street.
Okay.
And with the implementation of this policy, what you may very well find is that law enforcement aggressively, to ensure that it has an impact and it takes root, aggressively starts citing folks who are doing that. And so what I would propose, and I really appreciate your work as a consultant, what I would propose is a pilot. You know, really looking at some primary arteries and seeing what the impact is over a specified period of time, and then make an informed decision about the implementation.
Okay. That's very good feedback, and I would encourage you to share that as we move forward in this process. One thing
And I'd ask you to take it back with you also.
I will, absolutely. Sorry, Jim, go ahead.
Well, I would say that one data point that I've personally dealt with Boulevard, and I advocated for a traffic study to address speed on Boulevard, and the study came back essentially with the 90 percentile speed rating of well over 35 miles an hour, but then the problem became, well, if the speed limit is 35 miles an hour and the 90th percentile speed is 39 miles per hour, then Boulevard is operating fine, right? And so one of the advantages from lowering Boulevard to 25 miles an hour, it now allows future traffic calming designs to be based on that 25 hours speed limit. So let's say the speed limit went from 37 miles an hour at the 90th percentile down to 36. But what it now allows us to do is, as a community, is go back and say we need to work on the design of Boulevard to get the speed closer to what the actual speed limit is. And so I think that's a huge value. I think the other thing we saw on the data point of Boulevard is it then allowed police officers to begin writing tickets on Boulevard, and merely the presence of well, it's not a long-term, I mean, having people see and talk about the next door traffic speeding ticket writing, I think that does give people an incentive to check their speedometer more carefully next time they're out. So I think Boulevard's been a success story for 25-mile speed limit personally.
Thank you. I guess just to follow up on that point, this does get to the issue of enforcement versus engineering, right? Like, if you say that most people speed, a lot of that is dictated by the way the road is designed, by how wide the lane is, by how straight it is, by your lines of sight, whether there are any curbs or cars parked on the street. There are a lot of visual cues that really make it more comfortable or less comfortable to drive fast on the street. We need to absolutely address those engineering issues on almost every street in Atlanta. The problem is that costs a lot of money. It takes a lot of time. It is very difficult. We are continuing to press for streets that really, frankly, force a much more comfortable and safe driving speed, but we're not there yet. It's going to take decades and millions of dollars to really build that out throughout the city. This is something that's relatively inexpensive. We are talking about the cost of changing the signs. Frankly, if we do see, I think, some very adverse impacts as far as enforcement or just complete lack of compliance, we're talking signs right now. This is not something that can't be undone. I would almost consider this a pilot project while we continue to work for longer-term solutions. Any other questions?
All right. Thank you, Greg.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so I will now be asking the body to again reaffirm our previous vote of supporting 25 miles per hour speed limits throughout the city of Atlanta. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Can you abstain? Thank you very much.
Rick, you're on.
Yes, okay. Right now, Councilmember Smith, along with GP&A, Grant Park Conservancy, and, this is third one, Laura.
GP&A.
And AFRA, yes.
Thank you.
AFRA, are hosting a listening session, for the, restaurant RFP, request for proposal. That'll be February the 27th, 6 p.m. in room 302 at the Georgia Hill Center.
6:30.
Excuse me, 6, yeah, I can't read. It's been a long day. Besides, I'm old, you can give me that. Anyway, 6:30 p.m., February 27th, room 302 at Georgia Hill. There's an invite on Facebook, but if you would like AFRA to hear your recommendations, please come and let them know. They will be letting the RFP out soon, and we're hoping that they get a lot of good quality restaurants in this so that we can have something the likes of Spark Tavern in Grant Park. While I'm talking about the Gateway, we also have the same update that we've had for a while. They are still in their punch list. With this contractor, they will have one other contractor come in and then do their own punch list. So we're looking right now at least end of first quarter, maybe even first or second quarter for full completion. We'll update you as we have more. Thank you.
And one more thing about the restaurant RFP. Angela, one of our members, has offered to take down written requests, if those of you that can't be there, to submit to Carla at the meeting in
It's to
Africa.
AFRA.
Yes, I'm sorry, to Africa.
Yeah.
Africa?
AFRA's in control of it.
Yes, so she offered to do a form, because there was a thread on Nextdoor, I think with like 400 comments. Yeah, so any of those who feel like they can't go to the meeting, you can contact Angela, she'll be outside, and we have a form right out there,
I
so.
still say capital city.
Huh? Capital City?
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, they can put a stripper pole right outside.
Item 6, I'd like to recognize Paul Semo, our Homes Industry Chair.
Hey, good evening. Paul Semo, I chair the Homes and History Committee for GP&A. Come on out and join us. Gotta see if this button is working here. Come on out and join us fourth Monday of every month if you're interested in hearing people come and describe applications for projects on their homes. Some of the history projects that we're looking at in the neighborhood. And we meet at the Grant Mansion on St. Paul Avenue at 7 p.m., fourth Monday of every month. The maps that you see here are on your left is the local historic district. On your right is our overlapping National Register Historic District, and actually two districts. We have a North Grant Park and a Main district on the National Register of Historic Places. If you have any questions about these maps, you can come and ask me afterwards. Essentially, if you have a contributing historic home in the local district, you are under design review through the Atlanta Urban Design Commission, and that is regulated through a set of design regulations that our committee kind of oversees, and we actually have a subcommittee rewriting some of those. You'll hear more about that later in the year. And if you're contributing on the National Register District, you can benefit from some big tax benefits if you're going to do major work on your home. Preservation, there's nothing to report this month on any new construction or demolitions for any for the body at this time. For our tip of the month, Homes and History Preservation tip of the month, it's siding. We're hearing a lot of people give us a call we've seen a lot of applications come through about people wanting to replace the siding on your house, and they want to put on cement fiberboard siding, i.e. main brand Hardy Plank siding. There is, there's big reasons why not to do that in a historic district. Everything from the look of it is really, it's much thinner than your regular siding, and it does change the visual quality of your historic home, and that can lead to detriment to our National Register Historic District with de-designation or anything like that if it's ever assessed in the future. We want all of you in historic homes to be taking care of your historic homes and your historic materials. The oak and the solid hardwoods that your house is made of, sometimes 100 years old or more, is good, solid stuff. You will need to have a contractor look at and possibly do spot repairs of rot. Generally, a lot of people are calling, they're saying that their houses are cold, they want to replace their siding. There's many factors why your house might be cold or drafty, and siding replacement is not the place to focus that in a historic district. Second of all, with siding and with additions, this is a picture of a home with an addition put on. If it's not stepped in a little bit around the sides where you can read the original corner boards of your house, you can end up with these long lengths of just like a Titanic house and this new siding that comes across. In a historic district, it is advisable, and what we're kind of looking for is to, this doesn't have a pointer, but it's really to preserve your corner boards, your vertical corner boards, save your historic wood siding up to that point, and then transition to a new hardy board or anything like that for the addition. These kind of sidings are appropriate for additions, dormers, things like that, but not to rip off and reclad your house. Another type of siding that we're hearing a lot of people from, and there's not too many of these left, but if you do have wavy asbestos siding on your house, first of all, it's not going to kill you if you touch it or anything like that. It's not friable. It's actually a very good material, and it's really good at being fireproof. And it also adds a little bit to an insulative property. You can leave it on your house. Nobody's going to come and tell you to take it off. But if you do decide to take it off, generally underneath, 90% of the time, is very good preserved wood clapboard siding that was original to the house. Oftentimes this kind of siding was put on because somebody put an addition on in the 50s or the 40s, and they simply wanted to visually blend the house together and add this extra siding. They were probably sick and tired of painting the house another time every 10 years. Oh darn. It's your chance to change your color. You can take that siding off and investigate underneath, but generally that siding underneath is in good condition. Vinyl siding, you guys may have seen this beautiful home at 809 Cherokee just last month. This was how it looked for decades, actually since 1980 when it was made into a children's state group home. And they enclosed the porch, they wrapped the whole house in vinyl, including the eaves and everything. Right now, as of a couple weeks ago, this is what the house looks like. The wood clapboard siding on the lower level is in excellent condition, and the cedar shake siding on the upper 2 levels is in excellent condition. Wasn't scary at all, and that vinyl siding came down within hours. Now they're just going to look at redoing some of the siding. The porch was uncovered, so we now have another grand, beautiful Victorian era porch coming back to Cherokee Avenue. Some more siding. This is vinyl. Notice how flat this looks versus when it's uncovered. There's the original siding that's underneath there. All it took was some hand scraping, prime, and paint. But look at the flat nature of the vinyl siding when it's built up right to the edges. And then with it removed, those casings around your windows and things pop again. And to kind of conclude here, yes, what you're going to find underneath is going to be ugly. Don't be afraid of that. Hand scrape. Save those historic materials. They are irreplaceable and a lot of times made of virgin growth hardwoods that you can't even buy or replace anymore. Many of the old woods are, in their own way, because of resins, they're almost bug resistant. Remember that the cement fiber board is really to be used on additions. And a lot of reasons why not to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. All right, lastly, let's circle back to the minutes real quick. Did everybody have a chance to review them? Do we have any objections or additions to them? All right, consider it moved that they're passed. Yes. All right, wait. Oh, wait. I guess my slide doesn't matter. Do we have any new business? This is not to be confused with people that have new businesses, just any new business. Go ahead.
Hi everyone, I'm Mary Fernandez from your friendly neighborhood cemetery, Cleveland Street. And I'm just going to tell you real quick about some of the things we have coming up. We have a lot of cool classes and workshops, some of them free. Some of them are free gardening classes. We have a yoga class that's going to be held in the historic bell tower, as well as a headstone preservation class coming up. That's going to be pretty cool. We also have on March 14th, Malts and Walks, which is one of our most popular tours. It's the beer history of Atlanta. Afterwards, you get a complimentary beer over at 16 Under. And finally, and most importantly, in my opinion, because I'm a special events coordinator, we have Illumin coming up starting on April 23rd. If you're a member, you just got a link to our member pre-sale, but the general public goes on sale on March 2nd. So Lumen is our ARCS event at Oakland Cemetery. You'll wander through the 48 acres and see some incredible installations that use light and music and texture to bring the cemetery to life. It's also a non-illegal way to be in the cemetery at night. So, thank you very much. I hope to see you there.
Thank you. Rob?
Hey everybody, I'm Rob Starward. I'm the editor for Grant Park, for the Porch Press, your neighborhood newspaper. Just as always, let you know if you have any leads on anything, or if you actually want to contribute, 350 or more word article about anything related to NPUW, right? So East Atlanta, GPNA, and the Sand neighborhoods. Just send me an email, gpeditor@theporchpress.com. And also, if you want to get a free subscription to the monthly paper, get it in your mailbox around the 15th of every month. Same thing, just send me an email, gpeditor@theporchpress.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Norma?
Oh, the deadline for articles, thank you, is the 25th of every month. So you have about a week from today.
Norma?
Hey y'all, how you doing? Hi, my name is Norma Nyhoff, and I work for Nicholas House, a family shelter here in Grant Park. I wanted to let y'all know about a few resources and upcoming events. First of all, if any of y'all are Monica Pearson, aka Monica Kaufman-Stans, like me, we do have a Women's Empowerment themed luncheon. This is our new beginnings event that will be taking place at the Four Seasons on Friday, March 27th. If you have a passion to make a difference for the homeless families we're serving and for recognizing the contributions of female leaders in the Metro Atlanta area, please check out our website, nicholashouse.org, and take a look. We also offer open door tours the first Saturday of each month of our shelter. If you haven't had the opportunity to visit, you can RSVP on the website. And last of all, if you or anyone you know is experiencing any housing instability, if you know anyone experiencing homelessness, I also have provided a list of resources out on the table out front, or you can find me after, that talks through how you can refer folks to get help. So please don't hesitate to come and grab me if you have any questions.
Thank you for everything you do, Norma. Anyone else? Awesome. I'd like to recognize any neighbors or businesses that are here for their first meeting. You want to stand up or wave or do whatever? Yay! Woo! Thank you for coming to GPNA. We have a little reception outside. We can all get to know you, so I don't have to embarrass you here. Yeah, go
Good
ahead.
evening, I am Lisetta Campbell. My mother and I are going to open a Filipino restaurant on 580 Woodward Avenue. So we're actually really excited, and I've actually brought puron, so you can sample it. It's plantains, and it's coated with sugar and cinnamon, wrapped with, you guys will probably be more familiar with egg roll wrap. However, in Filipino, it's lumpia wrap. So please, welcome to try it. Do you guys have any questions?
580 Woodward, right?
580 Woodward Avenue. I'm sorry?
When did you open it?
Oh, in April, sometime in April, hopefully then, most likely beginning of May. We're waiting for the construction to finish.
Is it lunch and dinner?
It's going to be dinner, Monday through Thursday, Monday through Friday is going to be dinner. And our latest time on Friday will be 11. So Monday through Thursday will be 5 to 10. Friday will be 5 to 11. And then Saturday and Sunday will be brunch, it'll be about 10 to 10. Brunch, lunch, and dinner. So it'll be about 10 to 10.
Thank you so much. And again, there's cookies and hot chocolate out in the hallway. I'd love to get to know some of you. Come on out there and let's socialize. We're adjourned. Woo! Oh, and thank you to the zoo for providing us AV. Woo! Claire!